I'm gonna be so real, at least half of the sketchbook page is just gonna be dark Cacao Cookie suffering, and I am here for that. Hello, I'm Asher, and over the last couple months I've gradually gotten into this silly little game about magic cookies, and for this video I'm making a sketchbook page centered around the part of the story mode that I recently finished. I'm using my mixed media sketchbook, the same one from my redrawing old art video, now with a fully decorated cover, as well as my miscellaneous Copic and Ohuhu markers, some pens, and highlighters. I'll talk more about my process later, but for now, let me introduce you to Cookie Run Kingdom, aka one of my newest obsessions. Now, at first glance, Cookie Run Kingdom may appear to be an innocent little game of adorable sentient cookie characters. The sweet exterior, a simple gimmick to pull people into spending their money for the gacha. But this is where you are wrong, my friend. I started playing this game on a whim with the promise to myself that I would not spend any money, and I have kept to that, but I was shocked by how much there is to do without any dollars being spent. They give you so much free stuff, especially at the beginning of the game. They want to make sure you are not starting on the wrong foot, and the pace at which they introduce each feature of the game, of which there are many, is really good. I never really found myself overwhelmed or confused, except about the parts I didn't really care about and then skipped the tutorial, so I guess it makes sense that I don't know what I'm doing in the arena. But I'm still unlocking new features as I build and improve my kingdom, and I've been playing for, like I said, a couple months now, and I'm just impressed that as far into the game I've gotten, which is quite a few hours, but somehow still not very far at all, there's still new stuff that they're adding. All of that to say that I do have ADHD, and because of that it can be hard sometimes for me to get into a game. If it's too complicated for me to learn, too directionless, or too repetitive, I am prone to lose interest and move on to other things. This is why I'm rather impressed with Cookie Run Kingdom and how much fun I've had playing it without ever spending a dime. Although, there's a good chance I'll start getting merch when I eventually have disposable income again. Until then, making fan art will just have to do. Now, my absolute favorite part of the game is one that I had to cheat around just a little bit, and that is the story mode. Despite being a game featuring cookies, there is so much lore. The main story is listed as episodes, and you can think of each main grouping as a season of a series. The first season is Crispia, season 2 is Beasties, and they just started releasing episodes for a new season called Timeline of Fate, and it looks insane. When I saw the introduction animation for this new arc, I was so hooked, and I wanted to know what's happening, but I can't jump into it yet because I was still on Crispia. At first I had this thought that maybe I could just speedrun Crispia and get through Beasties, and eventually I'll catch up to the latest arc no problem. I mean, it can't take that long, right? It's just a little cookie game. It can't take that long. I can't, right? Just to give myself an idea of how long it might take me to catch up to the newest episodes, I looked up just the cutscenes for Crispia on YouTube, and my jaw dropped at the discovery that the cutscenes alone were over 10 hours, and I was barely 1/4 of the way through this arc in the game. I checked the length for Beasties too, and it was 14 hours for just the cutscenes. Like, even if I did try to speedrun these arcs, it would take me months to get through the first 2 seasons, maybe even a year, considering I have a life to live and I can't dedicate every single day and waking hour to cookies. I very quickly decided to watch the multi-hour videos online in order to catch up to the new season, and I'm still working on that. At the moment, I've gotten through all of Crispia, and I just finished the Realm of Apathy arc in Beast East, which is what today's sketchbook spread is centered around. As I start talking about this arc, I'll try not to get too deep into the specifics in case anyone becomes curious and wants to experience it themselves. In other words, there may be minor spoilers going ahead, but nothing too crazy. So I wasn't really expecting to enjoy this story as much as I did, mostly because I don't like the main hero, Dark Cacao Cookie, that much. I don't dislike him, I think he's fine. His whole thing is resolution, and his priority above anything else is protecting his kingdom and its people. In the first arc about him, he even rejected and fought against his own son in order to uphold this promise, which is framed as equally tragic and heroic by the story. But at the same time, he just seemed kind of cold towards his people, at least from my perspective. He makes them work tirelessly to enforce the Great Wall, protecting the kingdom, and yes, Dark Cacao and his Dark Cacao Kingdom are very obviously based off of China. And yeah, a lot of this is meant to cause doubt in his goodness in both the players and the other cookie characters. Like, I see what they were doing, and I did like how that part of his character was resolved, but not the delivery, which I found kind of underwhelming. All this to say that I thought he was fine, and honestly a little boring as a character. Which is why watching him struggle and get humbled through the Realm of Apathy story was way more engaging for me. I absolutely love seeing a character lose their composure, especially really resolute stoic ones like Dark Cacao Cookie, and this gave me some really good moments for that. I wish I had actually paused the video at some of my favorite parts to note the dialogue and save for later so that I could draw those specific scenes, but alas, I did not do that. overall, there were a lot of things about this arc that I really enjoyed. One of my favorite parts was Dark Cacao playing a round of Go with the Dumpling Immortals, whose easygoing attitudes bounced off of Dark Cacao in a really fun way. I especially liked how they kept remarking on his youthfulness and how it contrasts so well with his serious personality. Him claiming that he has never laughed once in his life was ironically absolutely hilarious. The scene kind of felt like something you would see in a Ghibli movie. I was also in love with these dumpling trees decorating the sides of this scene and the path. Cookie Run always gets praised for the character designs, which is totally warranted, but their environments, even when it's just a space for the characters to run in a straight line, are also beautiful and funny and thematic. The Ivory Pagoda area is just gorgeous, and its bright color palette contrasts against Dark Cocoa's design. I keep saying Dark Cocoa. Dark Cacao's design, visually telling us that he does not fit in here and making him stand out. I think more than anything, the atmosphere of this episode was just such a joy to sit in. The environment design was beautiful, and the music was so good that I knew I needed to see if I could use some of them in the background of this video. Songs are listed in the description below, by the way. I think one of the reasons this game stands out so much is how much everyone working on it commits to the premise and takes it seriously. Literally everyone is giving their full effort despite the inherently goofy reality that all the characters are cookies, and that is exactly how you pull off something like this. All of this to say that I would absolutely spend money on a figurine of a little green dumpling bonsai tree. I know it will never happen, but it would be so cute. You could even add like a little cookie sitting underneath it. I don't care, Dev Sisters. I just want the little dumpling tree. Even though this scene was my favorite, I was not disappointed at all with the main event herself, Mystic Flower Cookie, the Beast of Apathy. This Pale Queen was an absolutely great antagonist. I loved the terrifying face she makes when her eyes go wide and inverts the colors, and the way she has this subtle earnestness in her interactions with Dark Cacao Cookie, almost like she pities him for not coming to the same conclusion of the bliss of nothingness that she has, which now that I think about it, she does actually use the word pity in her dialogue, so that was probably done on purpose. I especially liked the shot of her holding his chin as he is on the brink of his limit. It was so good, and I liked it so much that I had to draw it twice. Again, I won't get into specifics, but Mystic Flower Cookie's plan was just so horrifying and incredible. It was so good, and once more I had to remind myself that this is a game about cookies. Why does the story go so freaking hard for no reason? And I also have to give props once more to the voice performers. This is another thing that gets praised about the game. Every single cookie in this game is individually voiced, and there are no slackers amongst them. Everybody is doing such a good job while saying such silly lines, and sometimes saying lines that are kind of awesome and just slap really hard. It continues to be a delightful surprise. Finally, there were a few side characters that got introduced who I also really liked, including Crunchy Chip Cookie and Cloud Haetae Cookie. Cloud Haetae Cookie was one I already knew about, but it's always different seeing what they're like in the story proper. They are a young Haetae, a guardian creature from Korean mythology associated with protecting against fires, and anyone who knows about Cloud Haetae Cookie's backstory probably just felt their heart drop a little at hearing that. While they have a cookie form, they are also able to turn into their Haetae form, which looks like an adorable little lion, and they use their cute appearance to their advantage any way that they can. In other words, they are a fellow member of the lovable little shit club alongside Strawberry Crepe Cookie. Crunchy Chip Cookie is a loyal warrior of Dark Cacao Cookie who lives in the mountains, patrolling alongside his trusty cream wolves. I really like how friendly and headstrong he is in a deeply endearing way, and how he'll sometimes get bashful in certain situations. It's very sweet. Overall, I had a really good time through this arc. I think it took me a little by surprise because, as I mentioned at the beginning, I felt kind of ambivalent about Dark Cacao Cookie, but he kind of grew on me throughout his time at the Ivory Pagoda. I do wish there were more moments of him being a little softer, though. For example, I really like this one scene in what I think is some official art, where he's hugging both Crunchy Chip Cookie and one of Chip's Cream Wolf companions. It's such a small moment, but it's so touching, and I love the little bit of character it adds to the very stoic Dark Cacao Cookie. Alright, now that I've info dumped, thank you for indulging me in that, much appreciated, let's talk about my art process a little bit. I didn't really think about it until I was done, but most of these were technically studies. I didn't even notice or realize it because I was just having so much fun, and I am still getting out of the habit of thinking of studies as being boring and dull. I really enjoy playing with a limited set of art supplies. Something about it trips the problem-solving ADHD switch and pushes me to create without getting stuck with decision paralysis. And I'm starting to learn that studies also help with this. For most of the drawings I did, I used Ashley Ray's method of creating a loose guide with one of the markers and then going back over the image with ink to draw the character. I know Ray usually does this with highlighters, but I prefer using my Copics because they're a less saturated color, and I like to save the highlighters to add to areas that I want to really pop on the page. After that, I inked over the markers. Sometimes I used one of my fine-tip Uniball Vision pens with waterproof ink so they don't smudge once they're dry, and sometimes I used one of my colored ink pens, just depending on how I was feeling. Unfortunately, my phone died right before I was finished, and I did a few of the final touches off camera. Mainly, I added some text, used the blue, orange, and pink highlighter to outline some areas, helping them to stand out as distinct moments / drawings from one another. It also just helped to fill in the space here and there. I also went in with my white pen, which is kind of awful to use. The ink does not flow very well, to add some brightness to little details like Crunchy Chip Cookie's eyes and the single tear Dark Cacao Cookie is shedding in the last drawing. While those little additions worked out well, it did not work on Mystic Flower Cookie, whose white islets I redid like 3 times to try to get it to a place I was happy with. It was kind of a losing battle from the start because I accidentally set her eyes too far apart and she kind of looked like a frog, but honestly I think it's kind of funny and I ain't mad about it. One last thing I did was adding some coloring using my Ohuhu markers. I only have 3 of them and have been rather reserved about using them because they've bled pretty heavily in my other sketchbooks. However, upon seeing that the Copics barely made a dent through the paper, I decided to color in the darker cookies with this brown I have, and I'm really glad I did this. I feel like it makes the cookies look more like themselves and gives a stronger range of values on the spread as a whole. And here's the final spread. What do you think? Do you like it? Do you have a favorite part? Let me know in the comments. Again, this was a lot of fun to make. I've found that I quite enjoy doing stuff like this lately, where it's a blend of studies and fan art and messing up. These drawings aren't about accuracy, they're about preserving experiences of joy, making little reminders of which scenes and characters were able to evoke my emotions, and I found myself adoring this kind of indulgence. I don't feel bad that Mystic Flower looks like a frog, or that I messed up her clothes. I don't feel bad that I had to redo Crunchy Chip Cookie's face, or that Cloud Haetae Cookie's head is too tall. Even though I'm able to recognize these as quote-unquote errors, this spread is simply not the kind of art where that is important, and all of these mistakes are now part of the memory of making the page itself, and I think that's cool as hell. And with that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching to the end. If you enjoyed this, consider giving it a like and or subscribing. I'm a pretty new channel, so any support is a big help and means a lot. Right now I'm doing a lot of sketchbooking and traditional art, but I sometimes do digital too. My next video will actually be centered around doing a full traditional piece using G-Pen ink and watercolor with the style pulling from Naruto cover art, and I'm just really looking forward to it. If that sounds interesting to you, stick around. Now, I hope you are having a wonderful day, week, whatever, and I will see you next time. Bye!